to our discussion today for DNA sequencing. So we're finished on extracting our DNA, then amplifying it. We're done visualizing it through our gel electrophoresis, and now we will know the precise order or the sequence of our nucleotide bases in our DNA. So ito na tayo, DNA sequence. So today we're going to learn about the definition, the history, and the principle of DNA sequencing, the principles of our sequencing methods. We will discuss two and applications of DNA sequencing. So just to going back to our history. So in 1975 is Frederick Sanger, so the keyword is Sanger here. He developed the foundations of DNA sequencing. And in 1976 to 1977, yan, Maxam and Walter Gilbert, yan, Maxam Gilbert sequencing method. Now, it has been another DNA sequencing method. It relies on chemical modification and the cleavage of DNA. So actually, the Sanger method and the Maxam Gilbert method are the main two methods we're going to discuss today. Now, in 1977, Frederick Sanger and his colleagues developed the Sanger method, also known as the chain termination or dideoxy method. Okay? So, chain termination. So, there's an endpoint, yan, makakat, yan, and dideoxy method. Later, we'll talk more about this. And in the late 1970s, during this decade, researchers were only capable of sequencing very small base pairs. So up to 200 nucleotide bases lang ang kaya ng i-read during the 1970s. And here, in 1980, Frederick Sanger has won the Nobel Prize. So in 1980s to early 2000, the Sanger method has become widely adopted and it has been used for approximately 25 years. What's great about Sanger method is you can automate it. So it has been part of modern next generation sequencing method. Okay, the Sanger method. So we have to know the basics first so that we could understand further how the next generation sequencing method works. In 1990, sequencing has been expensive and impractical for most. So isn't it that in 1990, this is the start of the Human Genome Project. So the Human Genome Project lasted for about 13 years and it has been so expensive and impractical because note that they could only read the short sequences at a time, no? Your body has 3 billion sequences. So it has been it will take a really long time if you're just using the Sanger sequence to read your human genome project, to do your human genome project. In post-1990s, technological advancement and automation made sequencing significantly faster, more practical, and affordable. So Sanger sequencing was upgraded and integrated in our next-gen methods to handle large genome analysis. Okay, so now we are capable of handling larger sequences and longer sequences. So our current capabilities, so modern laboratory could um could just easily read millions of bases in a yeah. So back then, starting in the 2000, the cost of your whole genome sequencing, when we say whole genome is yung buong katawan, no? It was worth around 100 million dollars. Now it's down to in 2022, no? So um may fluctuation. Sobrang naging mura na ang gene sequencing. It's now around $100, like 6,000 pesos to do human genome sequencing. Okay, so it has been more accessible during this time. So, what's DNA sequencing? So, DNA sequencing is so simple. Okay. So, technically, you just want to determine the precise order of the nucleotide bases. So, isn't it that your nucleotide bases are your adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine? So, your DNA sequences has a precise order. So, I have a curly hair because this is me, no? This is my characteristics because of a precise order in my DNA, no? So that makes us unique, and the same thing is true with you. So example, guys, this is your exact DNA sequence of your 16S rRNA. Okay? So to be precise, it has around 1,501 sequence. Okay? So yan po yung sequence na AATTGAA Okay? So this is the sequence of the first 60 sequences. Okay? So this is your 16S RNA. This is the one that we extracted from your bacteria. So this is conserved, meaning all of your bacteria has this region. Okay. However, it also has variable regions. When we say variable regions, these regions acts as a unique signature for each bacterial species. So your different species has different sequences in the variable region in our 16S rRNA. So first, we're going to discuss your manual DNA sequencing methods. So when we say direct sequencing, so really it's direct. It's the most specific and direct method. You read the base sequence directly. So to read your sequences, they use gel electrophoresis, and whichever migrates that's the first nucleotide in the DNA sequence. Anyway, we'll talk about it more later. So we'll talk about Maxim Gilbert sequencing, then Sanger sequencing. And just to note, my sources is Buckingham for this manual DNA sequencing method. So for chemical sequencing, or specifically Maxim Gilbert sequence, so it's developed by Alan Maxim and Walbert Gilbert. So we require a single-stranded DNA or a double-stranded DNA. And this DNA is labeled with a radioactive label, usually in the 5' So just like this one. It uses chemical agents, and so these ones that are in the tubes, to cleave the DNA strand at specific base pairs. So when we say cleave, it's used to separate your DNA's fragments using chemical agents. That's why it's chemical sequence into fragments. Now, the molecular biologists will separate these fragments and depending to the size and identify its sequence. So by separating it into fragments, now we could identify its sequence. So step 1 is adding your radioactive label. So back then, they used phosphorus 32 and they added phosphorus 32 ATP. They added at the 5' end of a DNA using polynucleotide kinase. Something looking like this. Or sometimes, according to Buckingham, some 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 methods they add it at the 3' end using terminal transferase plus alkaline hydrolysis to remove excess adenylic acid residue. But usually, what we're going to talk about is the radio label is at 5' end. So step 2, are our chemical agents. So these chemical agents will produce fragments. So what were the chemical agents that were used? So these chemical reagents were separated into four different tubes. Okay. The first tube is your dimethyl sulfate, just like in the photo, DMS. In the second tube, our chemical reagent is formic acid. Next is hydrazine. And the fourth one is hydrazine plus salt. Okay. So here is you will add the chemical agents, and in that chemical agents in the same tube is you will add your DNA sample, right? And upon the addition of a reducing agent, which is 10% piperidine, the single-stranded DNA would break at specific nucleotides. So once you add 10% piperidine in in dimethyl sulfate, the chain will break. So every time it will have a guanine, it will break at guanine. It will become a fragment once there's a guanine. So notice in this image, so for dimethyl sulfate plus your DNA sample plus 10% pyridine, the fragments break every time there's guanine. Okay? So for formic acid, every time there's guanine and adenine, that the segments will break. Okay, it will hydrolyze at the end. So these are fragments. No, mamaya malalaman natin paano ba to. And for hydrazine, what happens is the fragments are cleaved when there is cytosine at the end and thymine at the end. Yan. Yan, thymine. Okay? Thymine, gamot ko yun eh. And finally, in hydrazine plus salt. Okay? So every time there's cytosine only, the the fragments will break every time there's cytosine. Okay? So in each tube are fragments because of the chemical agents. Now, so once you have separated them into fragments, is now you will separate it in a polyacrylamide gel. So polyacrylamide gel is vertical. So what we did last time is horizontal electrophoresis. So and we use agarose gel instead of polyacrylamide. So the radioactive label, so will be seen using radiography or X-ray film. Okay? And the size of the fragments will indicate the order of the nucleotide. So the nucleotides are inferred from the lane in which each band appears. Ma'am, paano yan? Hindi ko magets. Okay? So, um, so after doing chemical reactions to our fragments, now they will run it to the electrophoresis. So for G, so ano na nga yung for G, it's dimethyl sulfate. For G and A, formic acid, hydrazine, C and T, and hydrazine plus salt C. Yan. So, each tube will have their respective lanes. And after a few hours, mga 1 to 2 hours, depending on the volts and current, it will migrate the bands will migrate and separate. Okay. So just so you know that, so the percentage of polyacrylamide that they use is 6% to 20%. The loading dies are so that they could track, they could see the bands if they're moving. They use bromophenol blue and silene cyanol. And the run times could take around 1 to 2 hours if the fragments are short. However, it could take 8 hours if it's more than 150 base pairs. Actually, 150 base pairs is still a short fragment, no? So that's why chemical sequencing could be laborious. So here, So in this slide, so bands in both C and T lane and C lane, if it will make a long band, it will be letter C. Yan. Sabi niya, both bands that could be found in both C plus T lane and C is cytosine. So, since dalawa yung C, that's cytosine. Bands in the G and G plus A lane is guanine. Of course, kasi dalawa yung G, diba? So, because it's G, no? Yan. 'Di ba, parehong nahahanap sa lane na yon, eh, di G siya, 'di ba? It's not A. Because ayun, alam niyo na 'yan, guys. So, if the band is only found in C plus T lane, it's thymine, guys. And if it's only found in G plus A lane, it's adenine. Okay? So, what they do is, do I have a note here? So, the band that migrates fastest or the shortest is the first one in the in the DNA sequence. So this image is found in Buckingham. So from the you start reading from the 5 prime M to the 3 prime, okay? So yung pinaka first na nag-migrate, so nasa pinaka baba. So that's our shortest band and that's the first one in our sequence. So this one, since it's only found in G and A, no, this is adenine. Yeah. So literally back then is they manually read it, and this is called base calling. So ito na. So manual siya. So after you could only see this, right, using UV film or auto radiography. So this one is A since it's only found in G plus A. Next. So since this is a long line, both in C plus T, this is C. Next, C as well. No? Since this is found in both G plus G plus 1, G plus A lane, this is G. Yan. This is thymine. This is thymine. Yan. Nasaan na yung thymine? Yan, this one. This is guanine. I don't know how they... So this is adenine. This is cytosine. This is cytosine. This is guanine. This is thymine. This is adenine. Okay? So, ayan. Tama naman. ACCGTA. Yan. So, ganun. They manually read it. Yan. So, that's chemical Maxim Gilbert. So, they simply used 4 chemicals to break down the DNA into fragments. Okay? So, the limitations of Maxim Gilbert sequencing, it's low throughput. Okay? So, it's not efficient. So, while it's efficient for short DNA segments, it's very impractical for sequencing long fragments and large-scale genomic process. So here, this one, Maxim Gilbert sequences, actually, we can do this in our setting. Okay, I just need to find those chemicals. Okay, so for the chemical hazards, however, it could be that the chemicals are toxic and volatile chemicals such as the hydrazine and piperidine. So they pose health risks. So let's see if I could still find them. Okay. And for technical complexity, the process is labor extensive and it's difficult to automate, okay, compared to other enzymatic methods. So for dideoxy now, let's go to Sanger sequencing. So the other term for Sanger sequencing is dideoxy chain termination, or Sanger sequencing. So it's a modification of replication process, but the results are DNA fragments. So they are similar with Maxam in terms of the creation of fragments. It uses a single-stranded template and a single-stranded primer. So there's a template and a primer. a modified DNTP called DDNTPs. Okay? So, I don't know if you remember DNTPs. No, just the D one. So, the DNTPs in our PCR, they are the building blocks of our new strand. Our deoxynitro, um, basta DNTPs. Yeah. Deoxy nucleotides. Deoxynucleotides. Triphosphate. Deoxynucleotide triphosphate. So, these are the building blocks to be able to create new strands, okay, for our PCR. However, now we have new players and we call them DDNTPs. So, what they do is they create different lengths of fragment. So, they create fragments, guys. So, they create your DNTPs creates new strands. Your DDNTPs creates fragments. Ito po siya, yung picture sa number 3. The fragments are now run through a gel or capillary electrophoresis. So what are the steps? So step 1 is the addition of reactants. So these are the key players in our reaction. So you need your PCR product. So what we have amplified in our PCR, we have our primer. So the primer will bind to the 3' end. To the 3' end of your template, it copies it from 5' to 3'. So, I mean, they need to create a lot of copies of this, okay? We use, instead of radioactive, back then they still use 32P, okay? But modern methods now use fluorescent dyes. It's more common and it's safer to the environment compared to radioactive labels. And now there must be a perfect ratio between DNTPs, our building blocks, and DDNTPs, our um, the one that creates fragments. Okay, so 4 parts of DNTPs and 1 part DDNTPs. So, guys, I told you DNTPs are the building blocks. It allows the creation of new strand. It's because of this oxygen in the structure. It allows another bond to be created. However, for DDNTP, it lacks oxygen. It lacks three O. It lacks three OH bond. So therefore, a fragment is created. Yan. Lacks the ano yan? And it acts the hydroxyl group on the 3-ribose carbon that is required for formation of a phosphodiester bond so that another phosphate group will attach to it. So another nucleotide. So if this is an OH bond, another nucleotide could attach to it. But since it lacks the OH bond, it ends there. That's why we call it termination. Okay, it terminates the growth of a new strand or nucleotide, attachment of a new nucleotide. Okay. So what happened? So now the same thing is true with our chemical sequence. There are chemical DNA sequence. We have 4 tubes here. So each tube has one DDNTP. So for A, so it's a DDNTP that terminates the adenine group. This is your DDNTP that terminates at your cytosine group. This is your DDNTP that terminates at guanine group. And This is your DDNTP that terminates at thymidine group. So in every tube, there must be 4 DNTPs. So there will be enough building blocks still to create these fragments. So every time a DDNTP is added, the replication stops. So the ending is there are different length strands for our fragments. So notice in this tube that since it ends at cytosine, at the DDNTP is for cytosine, it terminates at cytosine. So all of the fragments ends at C. So the same thing is with your guanine, the fragments ends at guanine. Now is step 3, separation of fragments and sequencing. So a sequencing ladder is read from bottom of the gel to the top. The smallest, fastest migrating fragment represents the first nucleotide attached to the primer by the polymerase. Each lane corresponds to a specific nucleotide based on the DDNTP. Okay, so this is the lane for adenine, cytosine, thymine, and guanine. Okay, and they said that the one that migrates the fastest represents the first nucleotide. Okay? So you start reading from 5 prime. And so since the one it's at the adenine lane, so it's letter A, G, C, G, T, and so on. So approaches in automation. So current methods now um has a cycle sequencing, or there's now thermal cycling because of the discovery of PCR instead of a single reaction. So they could do this multiple times. So the advantage is there's no need to manually add reagents to start or stop the reaction. And what's great about Sanger sequence is it could be adapted in high throughput automation. Now it's still used in some sequencing automation today. Uh, Current methods now replaces radioactive labels with fluorescent dyes. Example are your fluorescein and rhodamine. So here is we have dye primer sequencing, which is the fluorescent label is attached to the 5' end of the primer, while we have the dye terminator sequencing, which is the label is at the 3' end of the DDNTP. So these are the automated approach in our Sanger sequence. So this is your dye primer where the fluorescent dye is attached to the primer, and this is your dye terminator wherein the fluorescent dye is attached to the DNTPs. As you could see in the image, they prefer dye-terminator sequencing since you will only use one tube and less primers. Just based on the image, it seems like it's shorter, it's faster, right? It happens only in one tube, in one reaction. So what else? Let's head on to approaches in automation. So current methods now uses cycle sequencing or thermal cycling instead of a single reaction. This like the same principle with our thermocycler or our PCR machine. The advantage is there's no need to add manually our reagent to start or stop the reaction. and it's easily adaptable to high throughput automation. This is the advantage of Sanger sequencing compared to chemical sequencing. It replaces current methods now replace radioactive labels to fluorescent dyes because it's safer for the environment, and it's better for large scale automation. So they use now fluorescent or rhodanine. Dye primer sequencing in the automated methods, the labels are attached to the 5' end of the primer, while dye terminator sequencing, which is the one that is preferred, is attached has a label attached to the 3' end of the DDNTP. So let's see the image. So this is the new ways of how your Sanger sequence is labeled. For the dye primer sequence, the dye is attached to the primer, while the automated well, this one is the dye is attached to the DDNTP. So notice which one is shorter, which one has less materials that are used. Isn't it that it's this dye terminator and it's shorter, right? And it only uses one tube. And all the complete reactions, all the reactions are already in one tube. Unlike your dye primer, you need 4 different primers and 4 different tubes. Okay. So now, instead of manually calling out the sequence in your gel electrophoresis, now there is an electropherogram. So this electropherogram is a graph of the fluorescence intensity versus time. So the DNA fragments will move in your capillary electrophoresis and they will pass through a laser. And the laser will excite the fluorescent tags on the fragments and the machine records it as a burst of light. So the burst of lights now will show as peaks in our electropherogram. So the peaks represents the DNA fragment ending in a specific DDNTP. So the colors of the 4 bases is assigned a specific color, typically green for adenine, red for thymine, blue for cytosine, and black or yellow for guanine. But for this depiction in Buckingham, it represented different color. Look at the peak that is black, and it's so high, and it is guanine. So the x-axis, the horizontal space, it represents the time or the fragment size, how big the fragment of guanine is. And while the y-axis represents the intensity of the fluorescence, the taller, the sharper peaks indicate a clean signal. Okay? So once you are seeing big peaks, that is a good high peaks, that is a good sequence quality. While in your right, this is a poor sequence quality. So the baseline on the good sequence, that is only one color peak is present at each nucleotide position. Automatic sequence reading software will not accurately call a poor sequence. Okay, so the role of technicians is you will find an area where there are good quality peaks. Okay, so if it's not a good quality peak, they represent it as letter N or S. Other letters that are not your nucleotide. Okay? So we reject or we cut out these nucleotides. Okay? So once you have identified right now sequencing has been fast. Okay? I think a very long sequence, you could finish it up till 3 hours. However, analyzing the sequence, okay? So once the sequencer generates the raw data, we need specialized bioinformatic tools, okay? So this will be our last topic in the laboratory. This program allows us to transition from simple base calling where they were manually calling out the nucleotides to advanced applications like identifying genes, detecting mutations, and comparing our results to global databases. Okay, so your molecular DNA sequencing has so many applications. It's used in medicine for identifying polymorphisms. When we say polymorphisms, there's a single nucleotide that is either missing, mutated, substituted, or there could be haplotypes. So multiple groups of nucleotides are missing or deleted, substituted, and so on. Okay. So those are our bioinformatic tools are BLAST and GRAIL, FASTA. And we will use this FASTA. Okay. So why did Human Genome Project happen for 13 years? Oh, it took a very long time because they were just only using the manual method of Sanger sequence. Sanger sequencing. So they were reading up to 3 billion bases. So it took around 13 years and they spent a lot of money and time. So now to achieve it, we have new generation sequencing, which is achieved in 3 hours, what originally took 13 years. So NGS is a massive parallelism, essentially running billions of Sanger-like reactions at exact same time on a single chip. So now we could perform multiple billions of Sanger-like reactions. Okay, no? So a caveat is the NGS could do it for 13 hours. However, using bioinformatic tools, analyzing the sequence, finding a good quality sequence, it will take time. Okay? So that's why we must do a great job on preserving our DNA quality in from extraction to PCR so that for sequencing, it will have good results in your electropherogram. So these are now your next generation sequencing. Okay. Massive parallel processing. Okay. So meaning millions of DNA fragments are sequenced at the same time. So now it varies from a large machine that's on the floor. Now we have tabletops, NGS, and actually now we have very small ones like a flash drive. So the other methods are your pyrosequencing. These are found in your Buckingham bisulfite DNA sequencing, reversible dye, terminator sequencing, ion conductance sequencing, single molecule sequencing, sequencing by ligation, single molecule sequencing, and nanopore sequencing. So guys, these are just a summary of different types of sequences. So notice in the categories, we have second generation, NGS, and we have third generation, next gen sequencing. Bisulfite DNA sequencing, guys, is an epigenetic mapping. So I just want to point this out that it doesn't detect changes in nucleotides, guys, no? But these are epigenetic markers, meaning walang mali po sa DNA sequence. However, there's a chemical modification that happens on the DNA per se. Walang mali sa order ng adenine, guanine, cytosine. Walang na-delete, walang na-substitute, walang na-mutate, no? But there's something wrong with the methylation, with the chemical modification of the gene. And usually this chemical modification is related in cancers, in aging, ganyan. So notice wala na pong radioactive dito, halos puro fluorescence na. They use fluorescence, they use pH change, they use ionic changes. Here they use bioluminescence. So pyrosequence and bisulfate DNA sequences, you could read it more in Buckingham with this. Yeah. However, I just want to add this nanopore technology. Okay, this is a third gen nanopore sequencing. This is your mini ion sequencing or minion sequencing, however you want to read it. Okay. So now you could attach this device in the USB of your laptop and now you could sequence it. Okay. So these are not direct sequencing anymore. Okay. What they use is ion currents in your nucleotide. So now you could hold it at the palm of your hands. Okay. So the size is like a microwave of your Illumina, the second gen machines or refrigerator. However, the nanopore devices have revolutionized the field by shrinking the technology down to the size of a USB thumb drive. Okay. So I'm finished with my discussion. Thank you for listening, guys.